And so just as we are getting started, I just wanted to acknowledge our heritage and our lands in terms of the spirit of reconciliation. And I live in Calgary, Alberta, so I work and play in the territory of the Blackfoot Confederacy, the Tsuut'ina, the Nakota Nations, the Métis government, Districts 5 and 6, and all people who call Treaty 7 region their home. And I humbly acknowledge my responsibility to know the truth about the harm that was and that continues to be caused to Indigenous peoples, and commit to moving forward in partnership in the spirit of reconciliation and collaboration. Now, I'm Gail Vallance Barrington, and I am a Credentialed Evaluator. These are the two books that I wrote or co-authored, and a lot of the information that we'll be talking about today takes its genesis in the book Consulting, Startup, and Management. And I'll give you another point about it at the end of our time together. So here's what we're planning to do today. It's a two-part webinar. So today, and then please come back on the 26th for day 2. Today, we're going to talk about your skills and identify your competitive edge, and then develop your elevator pitch. And then next week, we're going to talk about the marketing environment in which you find yourself in terms of evolving market needs and developing a dynamic marketing strategy. So here's the metaphor that I'm thinking about when we're talking about marketing. And that is that marketing is a river journey. And here you are in your canoe. And this is a Getty image, which I was unfortunately unable to purchase, but I just love the picture. So you're in your canoe and you're paddling down this river, but you cannot see around the corner. So you don't know exactly where you're going, but your destination is business success. Now there's two sides to the river. The river can be calm and beautiful like it is today in this picture, or it can be stormy and dangerous as it sometimes is when the weather changes on us. And so one side of your river reflects your skills and experience. And the other side of the river reflects the needs of the evaluation market. And so your job is to somehow steer your way down this river, not knowing exactly where you're going to end up, and being responsive and trying to find the path between your skills and the environment's needs. And so just keep this image in mind as we're moving forward. I hope that I'll be able to give you a few tools to help in this direction. So today we're talking about skills and experience, and these are the topics we're going to cover. First of all, digging for your buried treasure, and then talking about skills, your skills and your creativity, and then identifying which are your top skills and talents, and then writing a draft of your elevator pitch, which you will then take away and as homework, work on that so that next week you can come back and practice it in a small group format and get some feedback. Now, we have handouts, and there are worksheets which we need now. So, Dawn, are they available to people?
Yep, I've just posted them in the chat, so you should be able to access and download them there.
Okay, so if you have access to a printer, please print them off because the worksheets are for you to use. So while we're getting going on that, I'll start talking about your buried treasure. I think this is a great picture of an archaeologist who discovered this beautiful vase when she was digging somewhere. I think it was in Israel. And so digging for buried treasure, perhaps you really don't know what skills you actually have. And so we're going to spend a little bit of time reflecting on your capabilities, skills, talents, in perhaps a broader way than you've been thinking in the past. Now, perhaps when you're thinking about marketing, you leap immediately into, well, what does the market need? And I'll provide it. But that may not be satisfactory for you, because what I want to encourage you to do is to do what you love. And if you do what you love, you're bound to be successful. So first of all, we need to find out, what you're really good at and what you really enjoy doing. rather than just, let's say, doing a boilerplate evaluation, which is always the same and doesn't give you a sense of satisfaction. So for now, if you want to look at worksheet number 1, we're going to reflect on past projects, on jobs you've had, on positions you've held, even volunteer positions, because that's someplace that you can learn and hone your skills that can be very, very helpful. Or if you're a recent graduate, university assignments you had where you got really good feedback. Think of situations where your skills were outstanding, when people were excited about what you did, and when some kind of positive change occurred as a result of your work. So you may not be able to fill us all in now, but you can just be at least thinking about these topics as we work through the worksheet. What jobs, positions, or projects were the most meaningful, or the most eventful, or the most significant for you? If you could think of three times when you really shone, just jot those down. So we're talking about your major successes in terms of maybe innovative projects or methods, or some knowledge translation activities that you conducted, some kind of training that happened, or articles or presentations you were involved in, or even awards or public recognition. So think about those highlights and just jot a couple of those down. Now the question is, what made it possible for you to do such outstanding work? Was it the setting, the organization where you were doing this work? Was it the people you were working with? Was it the work itself? Was it something about you and where you were at that particular point in time? And, you know, how it just seemed, everything seemed to be so easy. So what kind of commonalities are there across these projects? Is there anything you can think of that these projects shared that made them successful? So think about this, and then this is kind of like a basis for as we're moving into our marketing plan. So I think we need to get together just very briefly to talk about some of those highlights, those moments at which you just felt how wonderful it was to be an evaluator, to be a consultant, and why you felt that way. And we're going to split up into small groups and just have a quick discussion about what things you did and how positive change resulted. Now, the next question is, what do clients want and what skills do I have? So if you look at worksheet number 2, you can just quickly run down the list and check off the ones about what you feel you have and clients want. Both. So like we're looking for the meeting of minds here. So in terms of technical expertise, knowledge of a specific sector, unique products, cross-industry experience, multidisciplinary approach, objectivity and insight, problem-solving ability, speed and reliability, ability to complete difficult tasks, good project management, excellent client relationships, good reputation. So what other skills that you may have? So for example, maybe incorporating AI, approaching culture from the lens of humility rather than being too focused on structure, too focused on policy, and perhaps not enough focused on being able to learn and to learn together, and having a sense of humility. Using data visualization, which of course has been around for a while, but there are always new ways to present it. Incorporating social media in your research in new ways. and folding training into project work. So, are there some skills that you could use that you're not using now? Just think about that. And then what other distinguishing features do you have, such as, for example, are you a credentialed evaluator? Do you have other credentials that you could use? And let's move on to worksheet number 3, which is about your creativity. So this is the part that's really going to make your work shine, because if you line up a bunch of evaluators, we all have the same basic set of skills. You know, we know how to do a logic model, and we know how to design surveys, conduct interviews, analyze tons of data. But what is creative about what we do? What makes it special, makes it stand out? So how can I think outside of the box, beyond people's expectations for what an evaluator should do? And how can I make my evaluations more relevant? How can I be more effective? Being more relevant, for example, using emergent and contextualized approaches, responding to emerging needs, incorporating complex systems, because we certainly do work in an at an intersection of a number of complex systems. We need to re-energize maybe underutilized evaluation methods. Some of good methods are out there which we seldom see. One of my old favorites was evaluability assessment, which at one time really fell out of favor and was hardly used at all, and yet it can be very helpful. Working with diverse populations, of course, learning to understand, again, from a perspective of humility. And how can I be more effective as an evaluator in terms of just the processes of your work, making it more efficient, making it more open in terms of communication and feedback, making sure your ethical stance is well known, being approachable, considering the needs of the organization and making the demands you ask of them to be as useful as possible. Perhaps sharing, collaborating more, partnering more, using collaborative communication techniques. Here's just a couple of suggestions: deliberative dialogues, town hall meetings, expert panels, pop-up focus groups. There's lots of things you can do which are sort of the same, but not really quite the same, and that somehow make the work exciting and dynamic and new. Now, we could have another discussion here, but I'm cognizant of the time, so maybe we'll just carry on a little bit further, and then we'll work on our elevator pitch. So the whole idea of an elevator pitch, which you probably know already, is that you're in an elevator and you're riding down from the top of a tall building, and you have a very short period of time when somebody asks you, so what do? You have to say what it is that you do. And that's how long your elevator pitch is. So it's very short. It has to be catchy. It has to be compelling. It has to be clear. It has to be extremely short. And in fact, this is very hard to do. So we're going to spend some time working on developing an elevator pitch. And the first part is identifying your top skills and strengths. And so that is worksheet number 4. And I really encourage you to work through it very quickly right now. As I'm sort of reading out these topics, jot down what is your strongest skill or what is your strength that comes to mind. So in terms of technical expertise, what's your strongest skill? Knowledge of a specific sector. Which sector do you know the most? And you need to sort of write these down because we're going to use these numbers when we're designing our actual elevator pitch. So we're going to cross-reference back to them, okay? Are there any unique products that you come up with when you're doing an evaluation? If so, what are they? Do you have cross-industry experience? If so, who with? What about multidisciplinary? Do you use and work with people who are in other fields at the same time. For example, once on a project, I worked with gerontologists, or another time I worked with health specialists for hepatitis C. And so, you know, how can you bring that cross-industry experience into your work? Multidisciplinary. Objective, insight, your unbiased perspective and your creativity, and what parts of that are strengths. Your problem-solving ability. Do you love to solve problems? I think most evaluators do. Speed and reliability. Handling difficult tasks. I think practically every client will explain with feeling somewhat embarrassed. This is a complex situation. The point of the matter is every evaluation is in a complex situation. And so your ability to work in those complex environments, your organizational skills for good project management, your excellent client relationships and communication skills, your ability to deal with conflict and diffuse difficult situations, and your good reputation. What do people say about you? So those are some of your skills and strengths. And I hope you've been able to think of some of them and what they are, because once you turn to worksheet number 5, this is what you're going to do. You're putting together a statement. And so your statement starts out with, I am known for, and then see your previous page for what your technical expertise, number 1. And then secondly, and my knowledge about, what did you put down for number 2 in terms of a sector? And I produce, what are some of those unique products? That was in number 3. Or instead of that, you might want to focus on your number 4 cross-industry experience, or number 5 multidisciplinary approach. And my special skills include, you can have 6, 7, 8, or 9. Objectivity and insight, problem solving, speed and reliability, ability to complete difficult tasks. Now, you're not going to have time to say all of those. So which are the ones that are the highlights? When you were thinking about your hidden treasures, which are the highlights? And my clients like what have you got in number 10 or 11? Your project management skills, your client relationship skills. And they often say that I am, what do they say? So if you fill in those points all the way down, now you should have material from which to write a 25-word draft pitch. So try it. Here's your homework. Think about what you learned and how you can weave what you've learned into the evaluations that you're doing or hoping to conduct in the near future. And then complete worksheet number 5. You're taking a stab at it, but this takes a lot of work. This isn't going to happen in 5 minutes, obviously. And it is, as I said, harder than it looks. And then it's embarrassing. You don't really want to try it out on anybody because it's hard to talk about yourself. Here's a couple of websites you can check out. So write a draft and then read those websites and maybe some others that you can come up with and find on your own, and then evaluate it using the 3 C's: clear, concise, and compelling. Try it out on your family. Try it out on some friends. Say it often enough that it starts to roll off your tongue. It's not hard. It's just natural. And come back next week and we'll try it out on a small group. How does that sound? Great. So next week, we'll discuss the pitches. We're going to talk about the other side of the river, which is the environment, and how we can use complexity theory to help design our marketing plan, and consider some key takeaways for future use to incorporate into your marketing plan. And finally, just to say, this is the book that I wrote so many years ago now, 2011, I believe it was. And I monitor the price to see how things are going, and really, right now, don't buy it on Amazon because it's $101. But on Sage Publications, and there's the website, it's 46. So, you know, it's wildly variable. And there is a slight hint of a possibility that maybe at last Sage is going to put it, turn it into an ebook, because people have been asking for that for years. And so we'll see if that actually comes to pass. But I just want to thank you for your interest and wish you all the best this week with the projects that you're working on or the proposals that you're writing.